Camilla banished after dangerous Windsor incident by King Charles. An unprecedented move. Queen Camilla is allegedly being banished by King Charles after a dangerous event involving Queen Elizabeth's closest confidant, as claimed by a royal insider who said that the palace is experiencing an unprecedented crisis. Buckingham Palace is experiencing what experts describe as the most significant internal crisis to afflict the monarchy since the abdication. Numerous reliable sources suggest that King Charles III has effectively severed ties with Queen Camilla, resulting in considerable turmoil inside the court. A perilous incident at Windsor Castle led to Lady Susan Hussey, body sustaining life-threatening injuries. Lady Susan Hussey was the most trusted confidant of the late Queen Elizabeth II and a former lady-in-waiting. The significant action follows the occurrence. A decision that has caused significant upheaval within the royal household and jeopardizes the nascent phase of the king's reign is Queen Camilla's clandestine withdrawal from all public duties as she currently resides at her own estate Raymill House in Wiltshire. This discovery has caused significant upheaval inside the royal household. Insiders with profound awareness of the situation have depicted a far more troubling scenario than the palace's official declaration, which characterized the queen consort's condition as a temporary period of rest. These sources have depicted enduring grievances, a deliberate act of malevolence, and an intense conflict that has dismantled the meticulously crafted illusion of unity within the royal family. Lady Susan's collapse at a special burial service for Queen Elizabeth II at Windsor catalyzed this very controversial scenario. The incident was first characterized as a tragic accident. Nevertheless, it is now under suspicion of being orchestrated at the behest of Queen Camilla. Insiders report that Queen Camilla views Lady Susan as a tangible embodiment of an old guard that never really accepted her. This is not merely a disagreement, it is a profound rupture, said a senior palace official who requested anonymity due to the sensitivity of the issue. This is not merely a disagreement. The king is profoundly distressed and perceives himself as having been betrayed. A break has transpired in the foundational trust of the monarchy, and it remains questionable whether restoration is feasible, a sinister undertone permeating a festivity. The series of events culminating in the current situation did not start at the somber commemoration. Instead, it began many weeks before at a grand luncheon celebrating the opening of Forest Lodge, a newly refurbished residence on the Windsor estate. An exhibition demonstrating the new monarchy's capacity to effectively merge modernity and tradition was scheduled for the evening. While violins played and chandeliers shimmered, senior royals spoke with dignitaries. Tensions were said to be at a breaking point, notwithstanding the presence of royal grace. Observers noted that although Queen Camilla attracted the camera's sight, she maintained her gaze intently on one person, Lady Susan Hussey, with resolute determination. Lady Susan's silver hair was meticulously styled, and her attire radiated a tranquil elegance. She was positioned next to King Charles. The two were seen laughing together privately, with his hand affectionately placed on her shoulder. Their smile suggested a friendship spanning over many years. Lady Susan was not only a former lady-in-waiting, she was a tangible link to Queen Elizabeth II. She had served the late Queen with unwavering commitment for over many years, evolving into not only an employee, but also one of her most trusted and intimate confidants. Lady Susan served as a tangible connection to Queen Elizabeth II. Other family members recognized that her presence at royal events symbolized the enduring essence of the late Queen, a fact they did not disregard. William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, were seen in a cordial conversation with her, clearly demonstrating their regard. A scholar of royal history remarked that to witness the king with Lady Susan was to witness him alongside a fragment of his mother. The Elizabethan era was marked by a distinct type of impeccable character, and she embodied a lifetime of duty, devotion, and a particular form of responsibility. Lady Susan served as a persistent and silent reminder of an era when she was seen not as a prospective queen, but as a threat to the crown. This was a period during which Queen Camilla struggled for decades to transcend her past. According to insiders, Camilla has maintained this attitude for an extended period. Although the evening at Forest Lodge was intended to be celebratory, it instead served as a poignant reminder of her arduous journey. Every kind gesture from the king towards Lady Susan, along with every recollection shared between the king and his mother's acquaintance, was seen as an affront. The fury was not a recent occurrence. As per an individual familiar with the queen consort's closest circle, for decades, it had sustained a tranquil presence inside her. Throughout Diana's rise among the whispers, and every polite smile that masked judgment, the sight of Charles regarding Lady Susan with such reverence that evening precipitated a rupture, a correspondence of destiny and an enduring, relentless resentment. Queen Camilla reportedly experienced insomnia upon returning to her chambers that evening, overwhelmed by a sensation described by one of her aides as total erasure. This feeling stemmed from a particularly painful episode in her past. She had retained a copy of a letter written by Lady Susan to Prince Charles, then the heir apparent. The letter contained a grave and earnest request sent during a period when the heir's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, who was married at the time, was becoming increasingly contentious. Lady Susan stated, "In the interest of the throne's honor and your obligation to your mother, the Queen, you must forfeit Mrs. Parker Bowles." She asserted that this was a necessity. Her ongoing presence constitutes a significant and intolerable threat to the monarchy's future. The royal communique declared, "For over many years, the phrase relinquish Mrs. Parker Bowles has been a source of vexation." Camilla felt that the sentiment articulated in that correspondence had never entirely dissipated despite her eventual marriage to Charles, her ascension to the title of Duchess of Cornwall, and her ultimate coronation as Queen Consort. She believed that Lady Susan was the principal architect of that sentiment, embodying the establishment's steadfast disdain. The source states, "It was not merely a matter of jealousy, it was the idea that irrespective of her numerous titles or responsibilities, the presence of a solitary elderly woman could evoke reminders of her true identity, Diana, or more detrimentally, a choice sanctioned by Elizabeth." Nevertheless, she believed that the crown remained the possession of spirits. The decision attributed to Queen Camilla was allegedly made after a period of measured and composed indignation. Consequently, she would avoid confronting Lady Susan. The alternative would be her outright removal from the board. She acquired a secure prepaid phone and dialed a number that had not been used in years, which linked her to an individual referred to as Edward in certain circles. Edward, a former operative in the Secret Service, owed Camilla a debt of gratitude for an unspecified favor that had safeguarded his career and reputation years before. A source familiar with him said that he was adept at making inconvenient matters vanish. He had previously managed minor issues such as containing leaks and suppressing adverse news, but this situation represented an entirely other magnitude. Queen Camilla's voice was described as cool and almost clinical when she said, "I need a minor incident. There is nothing chaotic, absolutely inconvenient. It was an accident. While at the monument in Windsor, it is antiquated for Lady Susan. Such occurrences are inevitable. No opportunity for refusal was there." She believed she had sufficiently bided her time to assume her position unchallenged, and the directive had the gravity of a royal decree and the urgency of a woman who thought she had endured enough. A somber monument exists beside the altar stairs. Edward navigated with the discreet efficiency that had garnered him acclaim earlier in his career. In anticipation of the forthcoming special memorial service for Queen Elizabeth II at Windsor Castle, he scrutinized the route that attendees would traverse. His focus was captured by a diminutive staircase situated in a less frequented corridor. The staircase featured an ornate wooden railing that originated in the 1700s. To the untrained observer, it appeared simultaneously ancient, historic, and aesthetically pleasing. Disguised as a repair professional, he commenced his task under the cover of night. The undertaking was minimal. A bolt securing the railing to the wall had been deliberately loosened, and the support bracket had been intentionally compromised. His objective was to engineer a specific point of failure that would yield under the moderate yet forceful pressure of an elderly individual seeking stability. This was orchestrated to convey the appearance of a tragic failure of aging materials rather than an act of sabotage. Windsor Castle exuded a somber atmosphere during the memorial service. The private ceremony was conducted by members of the royal family who were attired in black. While honoring those who supported her during the heaviest burdens of the crown, King Charles briefly locked eyes with Lady Susan as he delivered a heartfelt tribute to his mother. His voice trembled with emotion as he acknowledged those who remained by her side during her most challenging moments. Reports indicate that a single stare, seen as an implicit acknowledgement of a lifetime of commitment, fractured Queen Camilla like a fragment of glass. Although she maintained an expression of gravity, her resolve was intensifying within. After the ceremony concluded and the guests dispersed, the hallways fell silent. Lady Susan, appearing fatigued yet emotionally fulfilled, began her leisurely ascent of the staircase that Edward had specifically chosen. As expected, she extended her hand and gently rested it on the polished wooden railing for support. For a brief moment, silence prevailed. The stone walls subsequently echoed with a jarring and shattering noise. The balustrade completely collapsed. A scream of incredulity emanated from Lady Susan Hussey as she tumbled backward down the stone staircase. The sharp edge of the object struck her skull, and she lay in a crumpled heap at the base of the structure. Chaos ensued among the remaining visitors. A gasp was heard. Princess Catherine screamed and rushed to Lady Susan's side, utilizing her medical knowledge to check for a pulse and to staunch the bleeding from a severe head wound. Prince William, visibly pale and shocked, promptly commanded the royal guards, "Call an ambulance." At this moment, in a remarkable display of shock and trepidation, Queen Camilla lifted her hand to her lips while positioned near an archway. Her eyes widened due to her astonishment. Nevertheless, as she saw the events transpire, a concealed camera positioned in a security corridor would later reveal what the witnesses overlooked: a fleeting expression of frigid, blissful relief in her gaze. Prior to vanishing into the shadows, Edward briefly surveyed from the far end of the hall, where he remained concealed from view. The assignment was accomplished effectively. That was their belief. A vigilant princess in a murmur. The Princess Royal. Princess Anne saw the aftermath from a partly blocked doorway on the upper level unnoticed by those below. Despite Anne's reputation for her sharp intelligence and pragmatic demeanor, she had harbored private reservations over Camilla's capacity to assimilate into the family for an extended period. She noted the unusual and intense focus that the Queen Consort directed on Lady Susan at the Forest Lodge event. Suddenly, there was an impression that something about the accident was fundamentally incongruous. The railing's clean break seemed illogical, and Camilla's unnervingly still position among the chaos was disconcerting. Princess Anne, skeptical of coincidences, intuitively saw that this was not one. Her jaw was firmly clenched. She would discover the reality of the events that transpired. Meanwhile, Lady Susan was admitted to King Edward VII's hospital in London, where she was undergoing serious care. The diagnosis provided on the day of the accident included a fractured hip, a significant concussion, and considerable internal bruising. A guarded prognosis was provided for an 85-year-old woman. The royal family upheld a vigil. A devastated King Charles remained at her bedside for many hours. Grasping her hand, he was overwhelmed with emotion as he considered the prospect of losing a woman who had been a steadfast support in his life. Lady Susan had a brief moment of consciousness during which her eyelids opened. She moved her head to gaze at Princess Catherine, who was next to her, and mumbled through the oxygen mask, her voice hardly audible over the ambient noise. "It was not an accident," she murmured. Shadows were present inside the palace. Once Catherine got the chance to question about the issue, Lady Susan lapsed back into slumber. It seemed as if the Princess of Wales had become immobile. Princess Anne had earlier conveyed her concerns to her, and the remarks confirmed the persistent apprehension that had begun to form in her own mind. The remarks also conveyed Princess Anne's misgivings. The event was not as it seemed, the dispute leading to the Queen's deposition. It was late that night that the last, most poignant piece of the puzzle was ultimately positioned. Upon completing an extensive voyage, the King returned to Buckingham Palace, weary and engulfed in sorrow. He perceived her voice emanating from behind a partially open door as he proceeded down the corridor toward the private chambers he shared with Camilla. It had a muted, sharp, yet recognizable quality. Camilla was addressing Edward while grasping a glass of wine. The staircase fulfilled its purpose. She said, no one has any doubts about me. Merely maintain silence, and you will be well compensated. The king froze entirely as if the floor had given way under him. For a few moments, the hallway spun about him. Subsequently, a frigid, tempestuous fury surged from inside. He pushed the door open with such vigor that it slammed against the wall as he exited. Camilla gasped, her complexion immediately draining of color. The wine glass shattered on the antiquated carpeting as it slipped from her trembling fingers. "Charles," she stammered. Regrettably, it is not what it seems to be. The king's voice resonated with a deep, thunderous growl that he had never used with her before. The chamber was imbued with a palpable sense of dread upon his entrance, and his presence permeated it with terror. "Do not deceive me." Negative, Grady. Currently, no. Upon hearing the king's voice, Edward promptly terminated the discussion. He was on the other end of the line. The meticulously cultivated tranquility that Camilla had sustained for decades now began to unravel, and she started to tremble. I, I, I did not intend for her to be so severely injured." She lamented, tears streaming down her face. "I regret all that has transpired. My sole desire was for her to retreat from the public sphere and abandon our shared existence." The woman in question incessantly scrutinized me. Each time she looked at me, I was confronted with the Queen's disapproval in a novel and distinct manner. If only I could be rid of her. "Are you absent?" A visage of frigid fury and contempt manifested on Charles's countenance as he approached to scrutinize. "You intended to eliminate her as if you tried to erase Diana's memory entirely. Similarly, you have sought to obliterate the heritage bequeathed by my mother and replace it with your own. I exerted every effort to attain tolerance." Camilla's voice fractured under the pressure, escalating to a cry of despair. "I had to endure the humiliation, the rumors, and the sensationalized headlines. I have relinquished everything for you, Charles. Nonetheless, it remained always inadequate. I consistently placed second, constantly evaluated, always remembered to compare." She directly approached the long-standing conflict that had caused her distress. Her actions were responsible for the devastation. The letter she composed, in which she instructed you to distance yourself from me. I successfully located it. I read every word. She advised you that I was unworthy of the crown. The expression of utter revulsion on his face prompted King Charles to turn away from her arm. A stranger emerged before him as he regarded the woman for whom he had subdued the globe, the one he had raised to the status of queen. His declaration, "You are no queen," reverberated through the hall, like stones shattering the calm. "Not in all respects, not respectable in any respect." He departed, leaving her to navigate the chaos of shattered glass and the disillusioned aspirations she had for her existence, exile, and the ramifications of the constitutional crisis. Following a directive from the sovereign, the palace apparatus functions with a silent yet ruthless efficiency. The packing of Queen Camilla's belongings transpired within 48 hours, officially attributed to her being on health-related leave. Upon her departure from Buckingham Palace, she was discreetly transported to Raymill House, her private residence. The separation was not publicly announced. Instead, a succinct statement indicated that the Queen Consort necessitated a period of prolonged rest and recuperations away from the pressures of public life. Overseeing the press proved to be more complex than anticipated. Almost immediately, leaks emerged from the palace. One headline proclaimed, "The Queen has been removed from the palace following the Windsor incident," while another questioned, "Is the end of the affair for Charles and Camilla finally here?" Almost quickly, the allegations of an accident involving Lady Susan Hussey were linked to Camilla's unexpected departure, inciting a tempest of suspicion across the nation. The event has generated an area of constitutional uncertainty for the United Kingdom. Dr. Alistair Finch, a distinguished constitutional expert, observed that there exists no formal protocol for divorcing or exiling a queen consort in this manner. Her marriage to the king designates her as the queen of the realm. It would be unfeasible for him to revoke her title independently. Conversely, he has the capacity to absolve her of all obligations, expel her from all royal residences, and essentially sever her links to the royal family. This circumstance is characterized by a de facto separation, public ostracism by the sovereign, and an entirely unique occurrence in recent times. After many weeks, Lady Susan Hussey was released from the hospital. Owing to her fragility and need for a cane for ambulation, she has completely retreated from public life. In a discreet, secret ceremony held on the grounds of Windsor, away from cameras, Monarch Charles bestowed upon her the Royal Victorian Order, a personal honor from the monarch in acknowledgement of her contributions. He was overheard stating, "You saved me again," while fastening it to her coat. "I am the source this time." Lady Susan's survival and her muttering to Princess Catherine catalyzed the confirmation of Princess Anne's suspicions and motivated the king to pursue an investigation. Her composure amidst such egregious treachery has further entrenched her to status as a symbol of the late Queen's steadfast rule. Currently, King Charles III is the sole monarch. Although she retains the title of Queen Consort, Queen Camilla resides at Raymill House. Nevertheless, she has been divested of all significance and authority, rendering her a queen in name only. She is ensnared by the very ambition that propelled her to this status. The monarchy for which she long aspired has repudiated her. The crown she coveted now serves merely as a reminder of the specter she could not dispel, and the realm she once dominated only to forfeit in a moment of rage. It appears that the shadows within the palace have ultimately claimed their victory. Victory.